So after you get something typed in there for the chat, what did you learn about the basics of Congress? You can see the other items on the agenda on the screen up here. We'll work on something together. We'll just watch the video together, and the rest of it we can do independently. But that would be the government for public policy, and then we'll talk in the notes. We'll finish up talking about the basics of Congress, and then you can have the remainder of the period after that to work on either that or the reading. So if we would all click on the first module there, you can see government for public policy. If you would click on that, please. You will see at the top, it says Congress, the PA General Assembly, which is in Harrisburg, the county commissioners. Each of the ones that we have, Warren, Crawford, and Venango, have 3 county commissioners, and township supervisors, like if you lived in Cherry Tree or Oil Creek Township, for instance. They usually have 3 township supervisors, but that can be different in other places. Titusville City Council and the school board. City Council has 5 people, school board has 9. Legislate to create public policy. And you could also include the borough councils in there as well, like Pleasantville, Hyde-Town, or Centerville. They create regulations or programs to address issues that are causing harm or conflict. So what we'll do, together we'll watch the video so everybody isn't just playing different sounds at the same time. And while we're watching this video, think about the prompt down at the bottom. And it says, on a Google Doc, address the following prompts and submit after proofreading. First, what is a problem you feel needs resolved at the state or local level? And so number 2 says in 2 to 3 sentences, explain why it is a problem and use specifics. So just don't say it simply something's bad. Make sure that you provide a better explanation than that. And number 3, what did you learn from the video and web page that reveals why this issue may or may not be easy to solve in 3 to 5 sentences. So first we'll watch the video and we'll talk a little bit about public policy. And then there's also a website on there too to explain how it works as well. So just watch the video and think while you're watching this about how government works and how they can resolve problems, or maybe not.
One idea that we're going to keep coming back to in our study of government is the notion of public policy and how public policy is actually made. And what we're going to do in this video is focus on what you could consider to be the 5 stages of the policy process. And I'll use a very simple example to make those stages.
And after watching that video, of course, he mentioned that it can take a while at the national level, and that's why I wanted just for you to concentrate on state and local. But even at the local level, City Council only votes once a month. So you might discover this problem and come up with a solution and get the petition signed, but by the time you do all that, this month's City Council meeting's already passed, and it's too late to get on. Even if it was just within the next day or two, it might be too late to get on the agenda. So even something simple like this might take at least a couple of months. And a problem that often happens is people don't think about the last step, evaluating the policy. So no one bothers to see if it actually worked or if it did anything. And that's why sometimes you have things done and it seems like it didn't really solve any problems, and maybe it made more problems. And people get upset by that because sometimes governments don't do a good job of evaluating something after the fact in order for it to get done. And sometimes our people aren't pleased with the solutions that come forward. Another example would be locally, right down the street here, when it comes to traffic. What do you think households around the school, their biggest complaint is about cars?
Caleb can attest to this. Down in Centerville.
Yeah.
Okay, so my driveway is like smack dab in the middle of the valley, and so it makes it like really scary to pull out because like you can't tell if someone's coming or going, and so like it's always okay, do I hear anything? Do I, like, you have to roll down your window?
Yep, blind corners would be one of them. But one of the things people around the school complain about is parking, of course, because students use a lot of the spots in front of the houses. And so that's often one of the complaints. Well, they have gone to city council and said, can't you ban students from parking along the street? And of course, city council said, no, you can't discriminate against one group of people. And how would you even know if it's a student cars or not? So they couldn't do that. So city council proposed instead, well, why don't you just ban parking on one side of the street and leave that open, so that way it's easier to navigate back and forth? Because one of the problems is on any one of these streets, if there's cars parked on both sides along both of them, it's difficult for fire and ambulance to get through. But of course, the people who lived along that street didn't like that idea either, because then they'd be giving up half their parking. So unfortunately, sometimes there's no real solution that's going to please as many people as possible. So for the rest of the assignment, also look at the website that it has there. It says Steps of Public Policy. It also goes over some of those as well. So on a Google Doc, once again, come up with a problem at the state or local level in 2 to 3 sentences, explain why it's a problem, and then just in 3 to 5 sentences, explain why you think it may be easy or difficult to establish based on this public policy process. And then in 25 minutes or so, we will take notes on the rest of the basics of Congress. Yesterday we talked about the structure of both the House and the Senate and some of the leadership. The House has 435 people, the Senate has 100. The House is led by the Speaker, which is chosen by the majority. At least 218 people need to vote for that person. And then the Senate, of course, is led by the Vice President of the United States, who is actually called the President of the Senate when they're in that chamber. So how they operate, of course, is important too, because obviously with 435 or even 100 people, it's difficult to come to any type of conclusion about anything. And so each of the houses has their own rule book that they make themselves. So they make their own rules because obviously that group of people knows best how they're going to be able to get things done. So each house has their own rules. Second, only members can create laws. Only members can create laws. Obviously, with 435 and 100 people, it's already going to be difficult getting things done. So they can't just have bills created by any old person. It needs to specifically come from one of those people in the limited group. So presidents often talk about, I would like this law to be passed, or this program to be created. They don't have any ability to start that process. They have to go to someone in Congress to do that for them. Bills are sorted by committee. Bills are sorted by committee. In order to read through a bill, to check to see just if it's written properly or that it addresses the problems like they talked about in that video, they obviously can't have all 435 members of the House look at a bill and say, was this proofread properly or is this actually doing anything useful? So it's sent to a committee that has something to do with that particular bill. For instance, if that would have been a national level issue, they would have sent the bill to the Transportation Committee specifically. And then a bill, if it makes it through that committee, if that committee approves it, then it gets placed on the calendar of business. It gets placed on the calendar of business. More important bills will be earlier, less important bills will be later. So right now, for instance, any type of COVID-related bill is probably going to be sooner in the calendar, whereas if a member of Congress wants to designate December as National Cookie Month, then that's probably going to be put way back in the calendar because it's not important. In order for a bill to become a law, it has to be passed by both houses and then signed by the president. So the president isn't allowed to start the process, but he does have to finish it. Congress can also pass what are called resolutions. Resolutions, which are laws related to the Constitution. Laws related to the Constitution. And they can also make declarations. And some of those things, of course, don't actually need the President of the United States.
You mean what?
Declarations. And if you're wondering, the House representatives, because there's so many people, they don't vote by voice. Only the Senate does that. And if you can see this picture up here on the screen, what there is, and you can see there's electronic counters on the back of their chairs are little digital card readers, and they each have an electronic card that they insert, and then they press a button for whichever way they want to vote, yay, nay, or they want to abstain, in other words, not participate in the vote. And then it goes up on an electronic billboard. If you watch C-SPAN, it's on the screen, but really it's over on the side of the House chamber. So that way the vote can be counted pretty quickly. But committees are led by a chairperson. And that chairperson is a powerful member of Congress. And of course, they're going to be from the majority party. So right now the Democrats control the House and they control the Senate. So all the chairpersons right now are Democrats. So those chairpersons get to decide, of course, when the bill will be investigated, when they'll hold hearings or meetings about it. And they also decide whether or not the bill should even be talked about. And so it's incredibly possible that if a congressperson writes a bill, that it might not even make it out of the committee stage. And in fact, most bills die in committee. So there are thousands of bills submitted every year, and most of them die at the committee level. Yes?
You ever see that SNL sketch, like how a bill becomes a law?
That's a parody of the cartoon. Yes, I did see that. Yes, but most of them ended up dying there, and for good reason, because obviously there are some bills that are poorly written. There are some that come up with solutions that are going to make a lot of people angry, and sometimes the congressman has no intention at all of that bill becoming law because maybe their constituents really want it. For instance, if you're a representative representing Roswell, New Mexico, where a lot of conspiracy theorists believe a UFO crashed a long time ago. And a lot of his constituents want a big museum and a big investigative office put up for UFOs. Obviously, that would be a huge waste of taxpayer money. But if his constituents really wanted it, he might write a bill and actually submit it to a committee, knowing that it would be laughed out of committee, it would never go anywhere. But at least he could go back and tell his constituents, I tried my best. So how a bill becomes a law. So the first step is that a congressman creates a bill. It has to be a member of Congress. Now, obviously, they have staffs that work for them, and they write the stuff, and they put it together, but ultimately, it's the congressman that creates the bill. It is then reviewed, killed, or moved to committee. It is then reviewed, killed, or moved to committee. So there's an actual committee that just assigns the bills to the various committees that they're supposed to go to. So it goes to whatever committee it is assigned to, and then of course the process I just mentioned, the chairperson can do this or that. So the committee holds hearings about the bill and takes a vote. Now it's possible for a bill to then, if enough people want it to be put on the calendar of business, even if a committee kills it, it's possible, but that hardly ever happens. So if the committee approves the bill, then it goes to what we call the floor. It then goes to the floor. In the House, that means each party gets 1 hour to debate the bill. Each party gets 1 hour. And they can decide what to do with that. They can break it up into 10-minute segments, 5-minute segments, 1-minute segments. Each member gets 1 minute to speak about it. That is up to them. The reason why they limit it, obviously, is because, once again, there's 435 people. They can't have all of them talking forever about a bill. In the Senate, anyone can talk as long as they want until 60 of them vote to stop.
Like the filibuster with like a biscuit recipe.
Right.
I remember that.
So 60 of them can vote to have someone stop. But until that happens, people can talk almost indefinitely. So it is more difficult to get bills through the Senate. But once again, remember, they have 6-year terms. Only a third are elected at a time. They're supposed to be distanced from the people. They're supposed to be the more logical, cool, calm, deliberative body. In both houses, amendments can be passed. So they can add things. Amendments can be passed in both houses, which is good. It makes it more flexible. More Congress people might end up voting for it. It might make it a better bill. However, it's also a problem because it has to be identical. If there's a bill, like for instance, adding the 4-way intersection, and the House bill wants the stop signs to be standard size, but the Senate bill says, well, this is a really dangerous intersection. We want the stop signs to be 1.25 the size of a normal stop sign. That small difference means that it's not the same bill. It has to be exactly the same. Or even if it's something about spending money, they want to designate, $1 billion to buying all Americans ice cream, but the Senate wants to spend $1,005,005,000, then it's not the same bill. And so if it's not identical, and they can't make it identical, they establish what is called a conference committee. A conference committee. And the conference committee has members from both the House and the Senate in order to make an identical bill. Once they do that, and a majority of both houses approve, it then goes to the president. And the president, of course, can sign it, so it becomes law. He can veto it, which means it doesn't become law. Or he can ignore it. He can ignore it.
Wait, you can just do that?
Yes. Yes, he can.
Imagine like debating 6 months like over a bill, and then the president looks at it and goes, nah.
If he ignores it, and Congress is in session, then it still becomes law. If they're out of session, then it doesn't become law. It's commonly known as a pocket veto. The reason why the president might do this is because maybe it is a popular issue with the people, but he personally doesn't agree with it. So maybe that's why he would choose to ignore it. And of course, if a veto does occur, it then goes back to Congress, and Congress can actually override his veto with a 2/3 vote. That is incredibly difficult to do, of course. So 2/3 vote can override. For the remainder of the period of around 20 minutes, you can continue to finish up that public policy assignment or go back and work some more on the reading for the unit. Either of those are fine. Or you can look through the rest of the unit and complete other assignments that we'll do later on this week. That's up to you.